Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, ChadBurn, and we are back for another fun episode this week in beautiful sunny Montreal, Canada. We have an awesome episode for you today. Going to bring on two guests, some great friends of the show, so we could talk some sports, because obviously everything is back. The NBA playoffs are starting up. The NHL playoffs are underway. We even are going to get to talk some NFL news, which is just amazing when we get the trifecta going. We have not had this for a while, so any opportunity we get to talk about this is just so freaking exciting. But without further ado, because we're going to dedicate this whole episode with our guests, I want to bring them on. We obviously have Dillon Fields from New York City and Carlo Makarechi from Philadelphia. I always botch his last name, but it's good to have them on the show, guys. Hello. We'll start with Carlo. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Chad. How are you? It's good to have sports back. Last time I was on, we didn't have anything to talk about.
No, man. It has been brutal. It is nice to see that we have some Philly teams playing. We got everything going on. It's like feels a little normal, just a little bit.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Now the Phillies teams aren't doing that well right now. For that.
Yeah, exactly. But we can gloss over that one. But we'll turn obviously then to New York, where we got Dillon on. Dillon, how are you doing?
Doing all right. It's hard to hear Carlo complain about how the Philly teams are doing right now, considering the New York teams aren't really playing too much. We got some baseball going on. We got some good baseball teams, but unfortunately, hockey and basketball, we're taking the summer off, as we are known to do.
Think of it this way: the Rangers have the number 1 overall draft pick, though, so you're going to get a good player. Because I know nothing about hockey prospects at all, so I'm sure you'll get someone good and maybe become a decent hockey team again. But there's that for you.
See, the problem with hockey in having the first overall pick. If you get like Zion Williamson, you have an NBA lottery first pick overall, you're going to get a game-changing stud. And even if you're going to get that kind of player in hockey, there's 4 lines. I mean, you can only get so much from one player. So hopefully this guy is able to turn the franchise around, but we'll see.
You're going to need a Wayne Gretzky to really turn that entire franchise around. That's for sure.
I'm confident in the Rangers' leadership, more so than the Knicks. That's for sure.
Man, honestly, they just need to get rid of the owner and move forward with that one. That's for damn sure. Well, actually, great segue there, Dillon, because you talk about the Knicks. I think our first topic I wanted to get into today with you guys would be looking at the NBA. With the NBA playoffs underway this Monday, we now have all our 8 teams set up from each conference. Obviously, the last one was the play-in in the West between the Blazers and the Grizzlies, and the Trailblazers took that home with actually a clutch shot from Melo in the end to do that. So that was pretty fun to see. Now that everything is ready to go, I do want to get your guys' favorite teams from the East and West heading into the playoffs. So I'm going to start off. We'll look at the Western Conference. I want to get some of your guys' picks to see who you think is going to represent the West, as well as maybe some dark horses from the conference. We'll start with, let's get Dillon's opinion since he was talking Knicks before.
For the West?
Yeah, man. I want to see what you got for the West.
I don't have any hot takes for the West. I'm pretty confident that the team who's going to represent the West is going to be from LA. Less confident in which team that's going to be. I think I got to put my trust into LeBron and the Lakers. I think with Anthony Davis, that team is too good to be denied. But I'm excited to see a Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and Clippers if that's what we get. But also, I think the Blazers are a hot team. I'm happy as a Knicks fan for Melo that he's finally able to be a contributor for a playoff team again.
After ruining his career?
After his hiatus, his pseudo-retirement, it's good to see him back and making shots for a playoff team. So I think that's my dark horse team if I'm going to put my trust in anybody else.
Well, I was going to say that. I mean, dude, the Portland's coming in really hot. Obviously, Dame has had over 2 last 3 games scoring over 50 points. You got up to 40 in the last one. Do you see them beating out the Lakers in the first round?
Unfortunately, I do not see that. I think that's the biggest hurdle for them. If they beat the Lakers, and I think they'll be able to make some noise. But unfortunately, I do not think that LeBron is going to allow his team to absorb a first round exit, especially after however long they were off. I think LeBron's got too much motivation to make some noise, especially after missing the playoffs last year.
Well, that's fair. So, I mean, I like that point. Before I get into a little more deeper looking at the brackets and who I think could upset the two LA teams, I will talk. Carlo, who is your pick, obviously, to represent the West?
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a debate. I think that the Lakers have been the favorites to win the whole thing all year. I think that they have looked dominant in the bubble. LeBron James is playing at the same level that he was 5 years ago. It feels like. I think he's probably a surefire MVP right now. Just incredible, and just the team around him too. I don't think that anybody can stop them. I think the Trailblazers has been a fun bubble story. Dame is incredible. But I think the Lakers, I don't even think it'll be that close in a 7-game series with the Clippers. I think they'll win in 5, maybe 6 games, and be the heavy favorites to win the championship.
Well, that's the thing. You have Mavericks going up against the Clippers in the lower half of the bracket, and then the Lakers going against Portland. So Portland's on fire. Obviously, the Lakers will be reaching out to Skip Bayless to tell him to shut up and stop talking about Dame so he doesn't go crazy again with another 60-point game. But it's not. I feel like it's not insane to think that Portland, with the heat, with the kind of the heat coming out of the bubble right now, that they could possibly take out the Lakers. And then the Mavericks are playing excellent ball as well with Doncic and kind of starting to play better in the fourth quarter, which was their Achilles heel during the season. I mean, am I crazy to think that one of the LA teams might not make it out of the first round?
Yeah, I think you might be a little crazy. I think there's not. I don't have the stats in front of me, but there's not a lot of evidence in the past. There's not a big sample size of 1 or 2 or even 3 seeds. I think maybe 3 seeds, but 1 or 2 seeds losing in the first round in the NBA. Maybe you can say it's different now because of the reset and the bubble. I think that these teams got hot in the preliminary games, but are not going to be matches for Kawhi and LeBron led teams.
All right. Well, then, Dillon, what do you think? Am I going insane over here in COVID times?
If you think that the Blazers will beat the Lakers, I think you might be going insane. But, I mean, listen, I think the Mavericks have a lot of talent. Doncic looks like a perennial all-star, MVP caliber player for the next 10 years. So if anyone's going to make noise between those two first-round matchups, I think the Mavericks have a shot too. But that being said, I think the Clippers are too dominant, too strong of a foundational team that I don't think that they're going to go and slip up in the first round. So, no, I think that both LA teams make it out of this first round.
I'll hold you guys to it. Like I said, from what I'm watching, I think that the Mavericks definitely make a strong case. If Portland goes nuts, it'd be fun to see. Because my other concern for the Lakers is that if they beat Portland, they're going to take either on the Thunder or the Rockets in the second round. And if they're tired and beat up from Portland, maybe the Rockets or Thunder can take them out. So we'll see. I think the Clippers have an easier path than the Lakers. So I'm not too sure with the LA teams right now, but that's just me. So we'll flip it over to the other conference. So in the East. Obviously, Bucks coming in with the number 1 seed there. There was a lot more, I would say, upheaval with some more pushes from teams like the Heat, like the Pacers, the Celtics coming into their own. We knew the Raptors were going to be in that top 2 no matter what. So for your guys' opinion, East is a little closer to home for all of us. Obviously, Carlo for the Sixers, us, and then Dillon with the Knicks, which don't count, but you're still in the East. So obviously, Carlo, what do you think coming out of the East? Who's your best bet there?
I'm not going to make the case for the Sixers coming out the East. Although, had you asked me this before the season, I might have been able to make a passionate case. But I kind of like the Raptors. Weirdly enough, I think they're just extremely well coached and scrappy. I think Siakam stepped up in a way that a lot of people didn't think was possible. On top of a great year last season. I think that they need a couple things to go their way, like they did last year with a fortuitous quadruple doink shot against the Sixers in Game 7 and with injuries in Golden State. But, they seem to be a team that, seizes on opportunities and have just played so well and, have gone toe-to-toe with the Bucks this year. I think it's definitely between those two. I like Jimmy Butler a lot. I don't think that Heat team has what it takes, and I don't think the Pacers do either. And I think that the Raptors and the Bucks are better than the Celtics. So I think it's between those two. I think obviously Giannis is the best player, maybe in the league, definitely in the conference. But 2 through 7, I take the Raptors over the Bucks, and I think that really comes into play in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So Dillon, who's you picking there? Do you favor, Raptors or the Bucks, or do you think the Bucks are just going to take it all the way with the 1 seed, have too much talent really for any of the teams behind them?
No, I think the East is interesting. It's hard because I think there's a lot more talent in the West. So you can look at the 7 and 8 seeds in the West and say, like, look at all that talent, look at all these star players. I feel like in the East, you really have a more top heavy group there. I think the Bucks and the Raptors are by far the two best teams, at least until Kevin Durant comes back next year. So I think that the Raptors have a much better chance than some other people do. The Bucks. They are a great team, and they're led by who is soon to be the best player in the NBA with Giannis. And they are great in defending the paint, but they have some trouble defending the perimeter. And I know the Raptors have a lot of good 3-point shooters that can make noise. And so, in a series, I think that anything can happen. And I like the Raptors' chance. They're well coached, and I think they'll make the Bucks go and be better about guarding the perimeter than they've been in the bubble. So we'll see about that.
100%. One of the worst parts of their defensive scheme has been the perimeter. We've seen even the Heat expose that with Duncan Robinson going off against the Bucks. Now, Bucks won the game, but the Heat still made it pretty competitive through there. So, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you guys with the Bucks and Raptors being the 1-2 punch. I mean, Raptors have a better record right now without Kawhi Leonard than when they did with him last year. It does seem to be an actual, and also I think if Nick Nurse is not the coach of the year this year, that's insane. And there's a serious issue with the voting system there. But I have a fun question to ask on this one. In the first round, we have the Heat versus the Pacers. How many times does TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler get at it? And do we have them thrown out of the game several times or just maybe one time? Because, I mean, that's been a fun beef to watch in the NBA.
Yeah, it's gonna be special. I really thought that the Sixers made a mistake by not being more aggressive about keeping Jimmy Butler. I thought he's just the kind of player that you want in a playoff situation like this. I actually like the Heat in this series. I think Jimmy Butler is going to step up and sort of put the team on his back. But that'll definitely be fun it'll be must see TV when those two are going at it.
Oh yeah. Dillon?
I'm just impressed by TJ Warren. I think that he's been incredible in the bubble, really exploding and showing the team what his value is. I agree though. I think that the Heat are going to go and take it. Butler's a great player. The Heat are well coached. Yeah, I got the Heat taking that game.
Well, honestly, also, when I was watching the Heat, one of the things I said in a recent pod was that Duncan Robinson has been one of my favorite three-point shooters to watch recently because he reminds me a lot of Kyle Korver in the sense, and Carlo, you can remember this back in the day, Kyle Korver, who never seemed to take a three-point shooter ever standing straight up. He was always falling to one side, falling forward in some way. I love that kind of shooting style. I don't know if you guys seen it, but Duncan Robinson is a beast outside. It's amazing.
Same with Tyler Herro. That guy is able to make shots from anywhere on the floor.
I mean, the Heat are going to need someone to step up besides Jimmy Butler if they're going to go far with it. I like Bam, but I think the players on the perimeter are really the ones that are going to help them out there. But, Carlo, I will turn to you for a little bit because we did talk Celtics-Sixers there. What's your hope? How many games can the Sixers actually win, you think, in this series?
I think if I'm being objective, I think that if I had to put money on it, I would have the Celtics in 5. Yeah. Coaching advantage. They're deeper. They've been playing better recently. I will the one sort of, note of optimism that the Sixers did beat the Celtics this year in the regular season in their series 3 times out of 4. Not having Ben Simmons and ever banged up Joel Embiid makes it hard to pick them. I just don't have I don't think the team has a lot of confidence. I think it's probably time for a coaching change. I could be wrong. They could find a way to win this series in 7 on the back of Embiid, who I think when healthy might be the second best player in the East. And actually Tobias Harris has had a really, really nice bubble. Better, probably his best stretch as a Sixer. I just don't know if that is enough against a Celtics team that somehow seems to always haunt the Sixers.
I mean, that's kind of what my fear is. Obviously, Embiid was averaging, even before he's getting injured, something like 34, 35 minutes in the bubble. And now he's dealing with the sore ankle. He's had some other leg issues. I mean, he's going to have to average almost like 40 minutes a game in order to carry this team on his back. I mean, it's a pretty high ordeal. So I'll go Dillon, who is not a fan of the Sixers. I mean, do you give the Sixers even a game? Because, we're the optimists here, and we're still sad. And we give them maybe 1 game, possibly 2. Where do you go with it and be gentle to us?
I think they could go 6 games. I mean, listen, the Sixers are going to need a huge series out of Al Horford, who's going to have to go and take a central role now. I just think that the Celtics are too deep and too well coached. They're too consistent. They've had playoff experience now. I just don't see them losing round one to a really beat up team. I think with Simmons, it would have been a fun series, but I think Carlo's right. Keeping Jimmy Butler is probably the move after last year.
Oh man, yeah, they should have paid Jimmy.
Cry over spilt milk.
I know, should have kept Jimmy Butler, sorry, and should have obviously fired Brett Brown. That is my take on that one, because I am a huge anti-Brett Brown guy. So I need him gone, Carl. I can't go. I'm gonna go insane if Brett Brown stays on this team. I can't take it anymore.
If they don't win the series, then I think he's got to go. I think he's also, I'm a little bit more charitable on Brett Brown. I like him personally. I think he's got to go too. I don't think that Elton Brand in the front office did him too many favors. The Horford contract now looks really bad. We'll see if he can step up against his former team. Talking about like the opposite of what we were just talking about with other teams in the East, like no perimeter shooting. This is a huge team. That, if Furkan Korkmaz is hot, then they maybe have a little bit of a threat. But other than that, Shake Milton is kind of who he is. But they don't have a consistent shooter on the outside. It's really shown this season, and I think will be Brett Brown's downfall, which maybe isn't the fairest to him, but he hasn't figured out a way to make it work with the pieces he has.
Honestly, though, if you're going to continuously try and set together an offense that is going to be 3-point oriented, 3-point focused, and you have no one on your team that is shooting over 40% from three, maybe it's about time you change your strategy. And that's been my always criticism of Brett Brown. He doesn't fucking change his strategy, and I don't know how much longer I can take of him just having this team hoist up threes without good ball movement and leaving him beat down there to just waste away. I don't know. It's infuriating. And I mean, granted, we're not the Knicks, so that's better, but like it's still a brutal situation. All right, fine. I'm going to move on before I get too sad and start, commiserating my misery there. Number 2, I want to go through, look at the NHL playoffs. All right, let's be honest here. Guys, are we all NHL people? How many games do we watch a year out of this bunch?
I'm a big Flyers guy. I called them to win the Cup in last August.
Yeah?
I've been following no, that's not true.
Yeah,
I'm a playoff hockey fan. I'm a Philadelphia fan, and I am excited about the Flyers. But no, this won't be the hardest hitting analysis out of me when it comes to ice hockey.
Yeah, Dillon.
I know a bunch of players' names, which is I think a fair way to describe my knowledge of hockey.
Honestly,
I do enjoy watching playoff hockey though.
Exactly. Playoff hockey is the best. And I've enjoyed, and obviously, like I like the Flyers. I was trying to give some analysis last week and still messed up Coutier's name. I still don't get it right. So that shows how much far I can't even pronounce some of their names. But we'll do, all right, in honor, though, of the playoffs happening, the NHL is going on. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We'll focus right now, Flyers-Habs, going into Game 3. Carlo, we'll go with you because it is a Flyer question. Flyers, Habs, Game 3 after the Flyers gave up a 5-0 Game 2 to the Habs. Do we feel confident? Do we think they can kind of right the ship? Or is Carter Hart finally being exposed as a young goalie in a playoff tough situation?
Well, it's weird because I was listening to Philadelphia radio on Thursday after Game 1, and there was a lot of, nervousness. There was yeah, they won. Carter Hart was amazing. But, this Habs team, really matches up very well and had a couple things gone their way. They hit the pipes a couple times. Carter Hart made some, saves that maybe you make one in every 10 times. That game probably should have been, closer than it was on the scoreboard. And then we saw those fears come true in Game 2. I'm not ready to say Carter Hart was exposed yet. I still think we know that in order to make a deep run in the playoffs, you need a hot goalie. I think, you have to, he turned 22 this week. He's younger than my younger brother. And has just, shown that he could be sort of a top tier, goalkeeper. So, I think it'll be interesting. I still think that the Flyers are, should be favored to win the series, but certainly is not going to be, as easy as the Flyers made it look, in the round robin, knocking off the top 3 teams in the East.
Yeah, great. So, Dillon, have you been keeping track of the Flyers? Do you have any hope for them? Any belief that they can actually go far in this and make it to Stanley Cup Finals?
I don't really have a very valuable opinion to shed on the matter. What I will say is that the Rangers will be taking Alexis Lafreniere in the first round, and now I know his name, and he is.
I'm sure that's how you pronounce it too.
Definitely not. But yeah, listen. I mean, it's tough to get beat 5-0 and come back from that, but it's still a tied series, and I think the Flyers were the heavy favorites, right? So
Yes. Yep.
listen, I think they have still a good shot, but you're gonna have to go and prove some people wrong after losing 5-0.
It was absolutely brutal. Well, Dylan, I'll give you another one here. So obviously the Islanders are leading their series against the Capitals 2-0. Not far from your home over there because they're playing at the Barclays Stadium, I believe, again now. Well, not obviously right now during COVID, but close to home there. Have you been following the Islanders at all? Giving them a little cheer, or are you all Rangers?
I'm all Rangers. I guess I probably should have given the Islanders more of a chance. But when I started getting into hockey, just enjoying it, like the last few years, getting to playoff hockey, the Islanders weren't very good, and then the Rangers have been really bad recently, and I feel like I can't jump ship now and switch to the Islanders. Although my dad was an Islanders fan growing up, so maybe I have the family lineage to justify my transition.
Well, I mean, you're a Long Island boy, no? So I mean, technically that should be right up your alley there.
I'm a Westchester guy. Thankfully, not
Oh,
Long Island.
all right, fair
So
enough.
the Islanders would not be my squad. I think Westchester is Rangers territory.
Yeah, that's fair. That seems to be kind of the demarcation line there. That makes sense. All right. So I think, we all have our take. I'll say, does anyone have any predictions of who will be in the Stanley Cup? I mean, obviously, we want Flyers coming out of the East. Does anyone have any thoughts on who will be making it out of the West? I don't know if anyone's keeping close track to that at all.
I will stick by my preseason prediction and say the Flyers are going to go to the Stanley Cup out of the East. I think that with the way that Vegas is playing right now, I think it's hard to bet against them. But we've seen so many teams. I mean, just look at like Tampa Bay the last 2 years, being the best team in hockey during the regular season and then crumbling in the first or second round. That's what makes playoff hockey so great, is that anything can happen. But if I had to put money on it, I think I would put money on a Vegas Flyers Stanley Cup, which would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd love to see the Oilers come out of it. That'd be great. But I think, obviously, Vegas, we have the Vegas Knights, and then also the Blues have been playing pretty well. I don't know West very well at all, so we'll see. But I think Vegas is a good call. Dylan, any thoughts on that?
I think the Golden Knights are a cool story. I think that the most dominant team to come out of an expansion I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but
right.
listen, if the Canes can make some noise, that'll make me feel better about them ousting the Rangers really easily. So I guess I'm pulling for the Canes.
You're pulling for the Canes? Oh, God, man. How could you? How could you? All right, fine. We'll move off of hockey because that was obviously a depth of knowledge that we really want to explore. But we'll transition now over to the NFL. So we got to hit the NBA with the playoffs, the NHL with the playoffs. Let's look now at the NFL, which hopefully will have a season come September. I know Carlo obviously will not agree with that idea, but hopefully there is a chance the NFL happens. The big news is that we had some awesome signings, extension signings for tight ends in the league, both Travis Kelce and George Kittle, who signed a 4-year, $57.25 million extension and 5-year, $75 million extension, respectively. So George Kittle coming out of about $15 million a year, Kelce around $14 million. Kittle also guaranteed upwards of $40 million on his contract. I think we just got to start off and ask, Dylan, I'll go with you first. I mean, how do we feel with these contract extensions? Are they too much? Are they too rich, or are they actually right where they should be?
I think they're right where they should be. The tight end position has really changed in recent years. You had a few abnormal, extremely athletic tight ends. In the previous eras of football that were that acted as wide receivers essentially. But that take it up the seams. But the tight ends in today's day and age, you have so many in the league right now that are just incredible pass catchers. And teams really do focus on the tight end in a vertical threat way that I feel like that's relatively new for the NFL. And so for guys like Kittle and Kelce, who are potentially, I know for the San Fran offense, Kittle is almost certainly the one read on most plays. And in the Chiefs offense, Kelce is probably number 2 behind Tyreek Hill. So these guys are you should be paid as if they are wide receiver ones. And so, getting paid $15, $16, $17 million a year, I think is the range that you'll see tight ends at the top of their position going forward.
Carlos, is this too rich for you as well, or is this something that you think they deserve after this?
I don't think too rich for those two guys. I don't think that this is going to be the going rate for tight ends. Like, I don't think it's like quarterbacks where we've seen that, every time somebody signs a new contract, any competent NFL quarterback has to match that or surpass that. I think kind of the same way that we saw, I don't think anyone's going to be surpassing Patrick Mahomes' quarterback contract anytime soon. I think that, I think we've talked about this before, also in the context of fantasy football, but I think it really is right now Kittle, Kelce, Ertz, and then there are some good tight ends for sure, but I don't think that it's going to be a ton of players who command more than $10-11 million a season, just because those guys are so special. And I guess we don't know who will sort of come out of college in the next few years, et cetera. But I think for the last 3 to 5 years, or at least since Kittle's been in the league, that has been the class of the tight ends in the league, with I think Kittle undisputably being one of the most valuable players in the NFL, not only the best tight end.
Yeah. Well, I will say, all right, I'm going to throw some numbers out there for you on contracts we've had before with tight ends, because it is impressive at how much of a large jump this is for really where the pay is for the elite tight ends in the league, right? So previously, the highest paid tight end was Hunter Henry over the Chargers with a franchise tag of $10.6 million. Now we're going up to $15 million. So we are making a pretty large jump for the per year annual salary that's going on for tight ends. And that, again, like we said, there's a distinction between the blocking tight end, the catching tight end. But for the really athletic catching tight ends, I think that we're seeing that this money really is going to start increasing. The other thing is the guaranteed money. The highest guaranteed money before was Austin Hooper for the Browns recently with a $23 million guaranteed. And the signing bonus that Kittle got was $30 million. And before that, the largest was, shocker here, TJ Hawkinson over on the Lions for 19.8. So, I mean, Kittle, I feel, especially, and also Kelce, I mean, the bar is being set so high. How are we going to distinguish which tight ends deserve that? Are we now saying they have to be the athletic catching? Are they then going to be compared to a wide receiver and kind of separate from, say, the other blocking tight ends and so on? Because as you mentioned, Carlo, it goes Kittle, Kelce, Ertz, and then, I mean, who's next after that? We got Austin Hooper. We have we said the Bennett's, but he's no longer in it. I mean, there's not many other tight ends that are that athletic like those three guys. So are we going to see a gap? Oh, Dallas, yeah, but I mean, he's still got time to develop, man. It's still it will get there. But I mean, are we going to see a two-tier tight end pricing market where you have the catching tight ends up here making 15 to 18 mil, and then below the blocking that's more 10 to 12? I mean, how do you think of that, Carlo?
I'm just trying to tee up Dillon to talk about his tight end because I know that he really wants to
Evan
talk
Ingram
about
coming? But Evan Ingram's not at the same level, man.
The slot receiver that they call a tight end in New York. But no, I do, and I think Evan Ingram is a good player, but I do think that we are going to now see sort of two tiers of what contracts look like. Who's the next tight end who's due for a contract? I can't even think of it off the top of my head, but whoever it is, I don't think their agent can make an honest case we deserve Kittle or Kelce level money.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's going to be, kind of not a market resetting deal, but sort of an anomaly, an outlier for a player who, for two players who are some of the best that we've seen.
Yeah, but then Dillon, so I guess when Evan Ingram's contract comes up, he obviously is a catching tight end. I mean, I don't think we're going to make any case that he's a really good blocking tight end, and he's not necessarily the biggest, most athletic tight end. Do you think he's going to garner, say, what we're seeing above $15 million per year for a tight end, be the next one to go up, or is he going to be more near 10, 11 mil?
So yeah, Carlo, to answer your question, who is the next elite tight end in the NFL to get paid? It's going to be Evan Ingram. So look no further than up to New York. Here's the thing. So I think that the market resetting, double, getting 50% larger than the next highest contract. It's Hunter Henry's around 10 million. You get 15 million now for Kittle.
Yeah, 50% jump, yeah.
So I think that's kind of an anomaly. You just happen to have the two best tight ends in the league get paid right now. And there was a little bit of a gap. So I think, maybe if Gronkowski was paid fair value and not like a Bill Belichick negotiation contract, he might have had 13 or 14 million if he really tested free agency. Maybe he would have even gotten 15 million. It wouldn't have surprised me if he hit free agency a few years ago. But, before that, you had guys like Greg Olson, Jared Cook, really good players, but not really, market resetting tight ends. And so I think the reason that you saw that enormous jump is just because you had these really, fantastic tight ends coming out in the same year, getting their big deals. And so, I think that Evan Ingram will not reset the market. It's not like, where every QB is looking to reset the market if they're a starter. With Mahomes, that's not going to happen anymore. But with Ingram, I think he could net between, 11 and $14 million a year, probably closer to the 11, 12 range. And I think he's a great player. He serves a role as, not a blocker like Kittle is, but that's not what Kelce's, primary job is either.
Mm-hmm.
Ingram is a mismatch against linebackers over the middle, and I think that's what he's, excelled in as a Giant. He's had some injury issues, which is, something that's, to be considered when we're negotiating a long-term deal. But I think he has a lot of potential, and and I would disagree that he's not athletic. I think he's one of the most athletic tight ends in the league.
Well, all right, but let's go there. All right, so now that we're thinking about it in terms of obviously several tiers here, but as teams go forward, as they develop their strategy on offense, are tight ends going to become even more central? Are we going to start seeing in the draft picks, are tight ends going to go sooner? Are we going to start seeing value in the really athletic young tight ends coming out of college? I mean, because obviously, like we said, Dillon made a great point. We see with Ertz, we see a Kelce, we see a Kittle, and with Evan Ingram that the mismatches for linebackers covering those type of athletic tight ends, they're going to be open every time. And it just allows, your offense always to have an scapegoat. So, Dillon, to that point, I mean, do we think that the strategy of the NFL is going to start revolving more around tight ends, and we're going to see at least 1 to 2 very athletic tight ends who maybe can't block but are going to be great route runners and have amazing hands?
I think you're already seeing it. It's pretty clear to me, not only are tight ends being utilized more, you see guys like Darren Waller immediately have a huge impact, for the Raiders, but you have teams really looking to go and take these, versatile athletic tight ends early.
TJ Hawkinson is one of those. Yeah.
You have Noah Fant. These guys are, I think, falling in line to the new model that I think that Kelce and Kittle and guys like that have laid out for them, where teams are saying these guys can be extremely valuable. This isn't just like your guy that you're going to check down to if there's no one open that can block. This is a guy that you're going to be looking at as like your 1 or 2 read. And so why would you, be paying these guys or valuing them less than wide receivers? So
right.
I think the tight end position is moving in that direction.
100%. We're going from a Jason Witten was the reliable down check, always catch it, but not going to get tons of yards, to now looking at when OJ Howard came out, think about how fast we thought he was, how quick his hands, how much value he's going to be at the Tampa Buccaneers. So I can see that. Carlo, where do you see this kind of trend with the tight ends? Are coaches going to be scheming to get tight ends on their team? Are they going to revolve offense to pass calling around them? I mean, is that the future?
I think what's so interesting is that we've seen, we obviously know that passing is happening at an all-time high every season in the NFL, but so is play action. We know that teams are trying to use play action more strategically, because we know that statistically that gives an edge to the offense when we do it properly. And the great thing about a tight end like Kittle is that he's in there on almost every play, and you're not telegraphing to the defense like you might be with an Evan Ingram, this is probably a passing down. I think that the goal and the smart coaches and the smart offenses in San Francisco are using 1 tight end, 2 tight ends to not telegraph whether it's a run or a pass, and in fact make it look like it could be a run play on first down with 2 tight ends on the field. The Eagles do this all the time, and then go into your play action, which opens up other players as well, and then obviously a tight end as athletic as some of the guys we're talking to, getting off the line, beating a linebacker, and making a big play.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I kind of love this evolution of it. I mean, we as Eagles fans have been spoiled with it because, Ertz came in really in that early phase of seeing these really athletic, amazing catching tight ends, and just realizing the value you can have and how much it can increase the offensive productivity. But I mean, I found it amazing. The contracts are just incredible to see. I mean, it really, as Dillon said, it's a 50% jump up. I think Kittle is now, if he were listed with the wide receivers, the 12th highest paid wide receiver. I think if anyone can correct me on that, I think that's the case. But yeah, I mean, I like this kind of growth and where we're seeing the tight end. But as we were kind of discussing, we're looking at the value of the tight ends, where they are necessarily in the NFL ecosystem, how important they are to the offensive scheme, and so on. I think we had internally, guys, we had the pretty fun debate looking at, for example, if, say, all the NFL teams, and this will go to our next segment, say all the NFL teams had to redraft and they had to decide where they're going to pick, and, they all had to redo it as a brand new draft. Carlo and I, we discussed obviously picking really high, going quarterback. And I think Dillon, you made a good point about, at what point do you no longer take a quarterback to build your team and focus on another superstar, whether it be defense, running back, and so on. So I think, I'll set this question and put the Carlo on it. We talked about the tight end value. Let's look at the rest of the NFL. Clearly, the quarterback is the most valuable position in the NFL. If there was going to be a redraft, how many teams go straight quarterback? Like, does every team, the 32 teams, pick quarterback in the first round? Or is there at a certain point where you look at a valuable player like a running back, like a tight end, like a defensive position? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Dillon and I are going to disagree here, but I think that you would see 12 to 15 quarterbacks go off in the first few picks before you got to likely defensive line, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack likely at some point. Mm-hmm. But I think that you would see 20 to 25 quarterbacks go in the first round, and I don't think that you would see a defensive player go any higher than 13 maybe. Like, who's the 13th best quarterback in the league? Maybe it's like a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Matt Stafford. I think that if I were starting my franchise, and again, this is without like looking at the contracts or age or anything like that, but I think I would rather start my franchise with Matt Stafford and whatever defensive lineman I can get in the second round, as opposed to Aaron Donald and, Daniel Jones in the second round.
Yeah, Dillon, I'll go straight to you on that, because I think you have made some good points on like how there's some defensive freaks and there are some running backs that, you could see having more value. I mean, so I'll go to you. Is there any position that you could see being more valuable than a quarterback if you're building your team?
Well, I just want to say that I'd be ecstatic to steal Daniel Jones in the second round of the draft. But
oh my God.
here's the thing. I think that, we've established a good replacement level quarterback, a guy that, had a lot of talent coming out of college, but it's basically, a fairly worthless piece right now. I feel like if you're a team that you wanted this player, you could get this player very easily. And that player is Josh Rosen. And I think he's a good example because I think he would be the kind of player that if he were to have been drafted to a great franchise with a good coach, with a front office that believed in him, with a decent, line and some good pieces around him that he could, throw the ball to, or even a good, strong running game, I think you would have seen Josh Rosen excel. And everyone would have been like, well, that's inevitable. Josh Rosen is a great player. Josh Rosen would have been good on a bad team too. And I think that that's where we sometimes overvalue the quarterback's role in an offense. And before I continue, quarterbacks are clearly the most important player on a football team.
Right.
And if I was drafting, if I had a top 5 or top 8, pick in this, real life fantasy draft, I'm almost certainly going quarterback. And, I would be so happy to have the number 1 overall pick, the number 2 overall pick, and take, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. I think that would be, obviously set me up to be the best team in the league. But, if you're, in the middle of the draft, and you're talking about these replacement level quarterbacks or these above average quarterbacks, I think there is a really good argument to say, I want to go in game record. I've seen Khalil Mack take over a game and be the deciding factor. I haven't really seen Jimmy Garoppolo take over a game. I'm
100%.
not sure that, he might have a game where he has 4 touchdowns and no picks, but often that is, because of a great blocking, a great scheme, great play calls, a great play by, by George Kittle or an enormous, hole in their line that Raheem Mostert goes untouched for 80 yards. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we see out of San Francisco. And so, I don't see Jimmy Garoppolo as, this is my first overall pick. My franchise is surrounded around him, because I don't think you're going to be able to go and field a team that's going to be competitive with Jimmy Garoppolo as your best player. I think you're better developing a really good supporting cast and then hoping that you hit on a guy like Josh Rosen, who clearly has the talent but never has been given the opportunity to really excel.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can totally agree with that. That's a good point. I'm looking through the list here now and kind of which quarterbacks I want to take. And I kind of want to run through with you guys here and get your points on, at what point do we say that is no longer worth picking in early rounds, it's better to go with another supporting cast player where the value isn't there. So obviously, Patrick Mahomes, we're all drafting him, obviously, because he's there. Russell Wilson, yes. You can all chime in when I say something crazy.
Yes.
But Lamar Jackson, yes. Drew Brees, we're all still taking. Let's say now they're still healthy, they're good to go. Aaron Rodgers, we're still taking. We're still taking Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Matt Stafford still. All right, here's where something gets interesting because I'm running through a list of 32 of the 32 starting quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill. Do you draft Ryan Tannehill, or are you going for a defensive or a running back at that point? If, say, all the other top quarterbacks have been taken.
I just want to clarify one thing quickly. This is just for one season, right? You're just trying to win the Super Bowl 1 year? Because if we're going like in the future, then I'm going to obviously take Tom Brady.
Yeah, I know. Right now, one season. Let's not look at age.
Okay.
So Ryan Tannehill. All right, Carlos, you got an answer. Go.
I think I would take Ryan Tannehill over Aaron
Really?
Donald.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm on this side where I'm with Dillon. I'm like, I see Ryan Tannehill, like I can plug anyone in that position that could do just as well as Ryan Tannehill, and I'd rather have a game breaker like a running back or even a Khalil Mack. Dillon?
Here's the thing, and I think we probably all agree that we wouldn't take a running back until the second round of this draft at earliest, and I'm sure Carlo would probably wait until his last pick to take whatever scrub was sitting in free agency. But, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, no one says, oh, man, like that was that Ryan Tannehill-led ground and pound team. Right. That's a Derrick Henry-led ground and pound team. And if you're going to be taking Ryan Tannehill again ahead of every other position player, then you're basically saying that's a Ryan Tannehill-led team. He is the primary, reason that they're dominant. And I don't agree. I think that is probably, a really good run game is the primary reason, which is not just, Henry. It's also a strong line. But still, I don't know if I think that Tannehill is that valuable compared to.
Think of how much success the Titans had in the playoffs, and what was the game plan, right? It was give the ball to Derrick Henry and let's go. And then all Tannehill had to do was some check down passes, which you can plug in any quarterback really that comes out of the young out of the college to fill that role. Carlo, I know you had a little more higher value of quarterbacks in that sense. Would you be taking Ryan Tannehill over another position?
But I think that the Tennessee Titans are like the perfect example. Like I don't think that Tannehill is a great talent. I think he's like right there in that range that we were talking about, sort of like that middle level quarterback. But look how much better that team was when they benched Marcus Mariota. The team that had the same offensive line, team that had the same Derrick Henry. Now Derrick Henry exploded at the end of the season and in the playoffs, but you still need a competent quarterback to check things at the line, to make throws again. I don't think that Mitch Trubisky wouldn't have gone to the playoffs and beat the Ravens with Mitch Trubisky or Sam Darnold. I think that Tannehill is, again, he got a big contract. I think that he's a good starting quarterback who made some really big plays. Obviously the offense was centered around that run game. But I would much rather have Ryan Tannehill than, again, the 25th best quarterback that I'm getting in the middle of the second round in this hypothetical draft.
So here's the thing too. Yeah, we'll go on. But yeah, Dillon, I want to make a point or two. You say you need a quarterback to go out there and check in the line. I disagree in saying that Sean McVay for the Los Angeles Rams with Goff has proven you don't need a quarterback that can recognize defenses as check, because Sean McVay is making those calls to Goff literally to the last second that he can, which is what, the 15 seconds play clock point. That's when the coach mic turns off. So I don't think you need necessarily the quarterback to have the recognition, because there are coaches that are able to make those calls from the sideline pretty early on. Dillon, to your point.
I also want to add that, yes, you're 100% correct that the switch from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill made a huge difference for that team. But I think that sometimes like the chemistry or the fit is sometimes perceived as like there's an entire talent gap, and that Ryan Tannehill's talent is what made them so much better, as opposed to the fact that he was actually a better fit for that team. He had a much better arm than Marcus Mariota. He was able to stretch the field with A.J. Brown, hence giving Derrick Henry a lot of room to run. And so that whole team meshed a lot better when they had a quarterback that really could, exploit defenses, or had the ability to exploit a defense downfield, so that they could open up the running game, which is what they're, surrounded around. And it's important to see, you look at the Titans in their first game against the Patriots. They beat arguably the best team in the AFC, or the second best team in the AFC at the time, with Ryan Tannehill passing for 72 yards, I think. I mean, so like,
Yeah.
they showed that that team was not around him. Your best player does not take a back seat in a playoff game. And that's what, clearly the coaching staff had in mind.
So let's go with this one here and looking at some other players. So you are now, say you drafted down, okay? The top quarterbacks have gone. We've got Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, all the Goldies with Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. Kirk Cousins is gone, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz. Let's say also who's on there. It'd be like Cam Newton, Daniel Jones is gone. I'll even throw him that bucket. But we're getting down to the bottom, right? You have an option of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Drew Lock, Gardner Minshew, Mitchell Trubisky, and Dwayne Haskins. I mean, at that point, I'd say that's where the quarterback value starts to dip, and you have to start looking in other dynamic players because you could get, a Saquon Barkley, you can get a Derrick Henry, you can get an Aaron Donald, you can get Khalil Mack. I mean, that's where I stand. I mean, would you guys take any of those quarterbacks at that point?
Carlo, if you say anything about Fitzpatrick ahead of Barkley, it's going to be a massive problem here.
All right, Carlos, so are you going to say that?
I mean, have you seen his beard, guys? I mean, that's the face of the franchise. No, I think that's what I tried to say at the beginning. I think that is like the demarcation line of like, I don't know how many quarterbacks you listed, but like 1 through 14, I think I still take that guy over Donald. I think like quarterbacks 15 through 20, that's where I definitely want to take Donald or Khalil Mack, not a running back, maybe even a George Kittle or a wide receiver at some point at the end of the first round. But I still think that you would. I'm not only saying this is what I think. This is what you would see. You would see 14 or 15 quarterbacks going off, and then you might start seeing some other positions in the middle of the first round. That's how I feel.
Done.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like those guys, those names. I think Drew Lock. So if I'm trying to win a Super Bowl in 1 year, we're doing this fantasy draft. Like apart from the whole quarterback to other positions, question, I think I would like go for a guy like Drew Lock earlier than probably like he deserves, because I would say, if I'm going to win a Super Bowl, I'm banking on him making a huge leap in year 2. I'll probably take like guys like Jones or Darnold or, maybe like guys that I think have potential.
So you'd like Darnold too, you'd put in that bucket. Because I'm very skeptical on Darnold.
No, I think Darnold still has, I think he still has a lot to prove, obviously, but, I think he still has the potential to be a great quarterback. And that's, you will see guys after 3-4 years in the league really start to, blossom.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have faith that Darnold could be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. And so I would look at those younger guys, probably like, maybe consider them ahead of a premier defensive player. But I think, I'm not excited about like a mid-tier guy. Anyone that's, in their 30s that's not, a top 10 quarterback right now, I think I'd prefer to go with like a Khalil Mack or an Aaron Donald over a Ryan Tannehill, a Ryan Fitzpatrick, a Winston, I mean, maybe Winston, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, a name, it just occurred to me, a name that we haven't talked about yet is Kyler Murray, who is, I think, like has the sixth best odds to win MVP this year, who a lot of people are excited about in fantasy.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I'd be curious, where he would go in this draft. Obviously, the number 1 overall pick in the real draft last season.
I mean, I think Kyler Murray, especially when you put like parameters that like Dillon put down there, which is, you're trying to win now, young, you think you can make a big jump. I mean, Kyler Murray probably is going to take it before. I personally, I don't like his size. I like his arm strength. I don't like his play style. I think you really need a right coaching system for him to excel. So in my opinion, I'd go with a player that can fit any coaching scheme that would be able to be dominant, which is your Khalil Macks, Aaron Donalds, Bobby Wagner's, maybe some dominant cornerbacks. I'd even put some dominant cornerbacks above him, and some running backs or wide receivers. If I get Tyreek Hill or something, something that's a game changer, I would do it over Kyler Murray, because I think I could find a quarterback later in the rounds like I would say so, like a Ryan Tannehill that could be later down. Backup quarterback, Jameis Winston, I could even plug in, and I think still have the same success as Kyler Murray. So that's where I would go. I don't know, Dillon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Kyler Murray, has a lot of potential. I think that he is a little bit overhyped after last year. I think he was a good player, but he didn't have like mind-blowing stats. He had a bunch of really exciting plays, because that's what he is, an extremely explosive playmaker, and might very well be a great quarterback. And I understand when odds makers put these young guys as having high MVP likelihoods when it really would require a big jump, but they're banking on that year 2 explosion. I think he's overhyped, to be completely honest. But listen, the Cardinals need him to be an MVP level player if they're going to make any noise this year. So
honestly, I still can't believe Kyler Murray made the NFL 100 list over Carson Wentz, and like it got like it even higher than Daniel Jones deserved it more than Kyler Murray, in my opinion. Like Kyler Murray was I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, sorry, I did a whole spiel on this several weeks ago, so I won't get into it. But the fact that Carson Wentz was literally the top 3 quarterback in every significant stats compared to those guys that made the list ahead of him, besides Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, whatnot, is insane. But we don't have to go too much onto that, Carlo, before we all have an aneurysm over it.
Can I hear like a conspiracy idea? Like why is Carson Wentz not on the NFL 100 list? Because these are from the own players. It's like not even like a media snub. This is like within the NFL a snub.
All right, so I've talked about it a lot, so I'll go, Carlo, you can answer. What's your thoughts on that? On why you got snubbed?
I don't know why he was on the list. I think he was like 2 or 3 on the list 2 years ago. I don't think he's
number 3.
Third best player either. After his MVP season that was cut short, he was number 3. I don't care. I was reading an article that the methodology here is that they basically hand out a slip of paper and pencils on the last day of the regular season in locker rooms, and like half the guys fill it out and mostly just vote for people on their teams. It's not really a scientific poll, and
it's not objective.
It's for something that, like I've seen a lot of reporting on this, like for something that they don't put a lot of effort in on the front end to like actually get the players to participate. They really hype it up on the back end when they put out and it's all produced and stuff. I think Carson Wentz is going to have a really good year, and I don't think it really matters where he falls on this list. I think that 99% of football executives and fans and players would rather have Carson Wentz than Jimmy Garoppolo or Kyler Murray or any of the other quarterbacks that we saw higher up on the list. And so I don't lose a lot of sleep over it.
Yeah, I think it's a hype game. It's a way to get people to come back when the NFL season is not happening. It's a way for NFL Network to get views when there isn't, any news to be going on. So they like to put this list out there to get people to their website, to get people to check in on the channel. I think it is also a storyline driven. That, like, my argument I made a couple weeks ago is that it's a storyline driven thing, right? Like the people like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, where you expected nothing out of them, ended up having some pretty cool moments throughout the season. So you feel a little bit they are quicker to come to your head. And I think there's a lot of expectations of Carson Wentz, and when he doesn't meet that, we assume it's a terrible season. When in reality, he had, he's over 4,000 yards. It was really incredible. He had a better TD to interception ratio than anyone else on that list, besides Tom Brady. It's unfair. He had the second highest game-winning drives out of everyone on that list, so the clutch factor came in. And what just infuriates me is that a list like this, which again is not objective, that is not really driven by statistics, is not driven by actual performance on the field and just storyline, it gives fuel to the fire of all the haters. And I've had to deal already on Instagram and otherwise Cowboys fans telling me he's out, he's washed up, and Hurts is going to take his job. Okay, and like that's what pisses me off, because I'm like, I don't need to deal with this shit when there's nothing backing it up. It's insane.
Maybe it's his fumbling problem. I know that Eagles fans have been reminding me all the time this past year that fumbling issues are never ending, and they'll make your number 1 overall pick a bust.
Whatever. And I know they do that to, was it Jones? Because Jones had a bunch of fumbles this year.
Yeah, he had a couple.
That's mean. I think he's gotten better, but I agree he holds on to the ball, so we'll see. But if I have one more, I have one guy that I often get into disagreements with on Instagram. Who keeps making the argument that Carson doesn't have the intangibles. If I hear that again, I'm going to go insane.
Low awareness.
He's a good guy, smart guy. Just like we always get in this argument because he wants to make the case that Carson doesn't have the it factor. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of argument that is. I can't take that.
It's hard to argue against the it factor.
Yeah, I'm not going to even respond to this, Connor.
I know, it's just like after a certain while, I know.
Is he from Dallas?
I actually don't know. I think he lives in Northeast now, but I think he might have been originally. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think he might be. Those are the worst fans we know, Carlo. Those that are not from the Dallas region that are Cowboys fans.
As Mike Missinelli says, the cockroaches that live amongst us.
Exactly.
I don't spend my time thinking about that.
Oh my God. Absolutely. All right, so I think that was all the top lists we had on there. Any other quarterbacks that come to mind that you guys want to discuss to take over, or any big names there?
I think we did a pretty good.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest question for you guys is, if you guys are going to be taking, obviously the only question is like, what do you do if you're picking in the middle of the round? But if you're picking in the middle of the round and you see a bunch of unimpressive, maybe average to above average quarterbacks, you really think that what is your Super Bowl recipe that you plan on building that's going to make you a Super Bowl team? With Jimmy Garoppolo as your first overall pick at pick 18. Or
Carl, you can answer. Yeah, Carl, you can answer first on that one.
Well, I signed Nick Foles as my backup.
But you could just get Nick Foles in the third round. I thought we could just have Aaron Donald and George Kittle and Nick Foles.
That could be a Super Bowl team.
Could be more so than Jimmy Garoppolo and whatever, a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah. So, Dillon, I think the recipe is that if you get someone that is around that 15, 16, is that type of quarterback, right? If you're picking at that point, you're not going to take a defense, that you're getting a quarterback that you hope can at least make one or two plays in a tough situation that will get you the win, right? You don't need to rely on them, but you can expect at least a few plays to be big. Ergo, Ryan Tannehill, who, again, the offense was not run through him, but when the Titans still needed him to make a pass, he could at least make a quick slant route. He could get the curl and under just to get a few yards and get them first down. That's where I see it. And then you can build a very good defense, because then you can go defense-oriented after that and kind of build a decent team that's a cohesive team around it. So I still think there's value in getting a quarterback that early. If, again, hypothetical fantasy redraft, to get a quarterback that at least has some competence, has the ability to at least, play when you need them to in certain situations, that's where I see the value. Because if you go second, third round, you're getting, so Andy Dalton was the best argument that I think you brought up, Dillon. Was like, do you want Andy Dalton over one on the defense?
If I pair him with Khalil Mack or Tyreek Hill or something, I love Andy Dalton.
See Dalton in the second or third round. I agree with that. Like, I'm not taking Dalton in the first round. I'm going to get a superstar defensive or offensive powerhouse, player. I mean, or even I'm putting up like the wide receivers are going to be amazing this year. I mean, imagine fantasy draft, for example. I mean, DK Metcalf is going to be, big time up there. So I could see even doing that to support your offense, and then getting later a big, quarterback for sure.
I see that you're holding on to him to your fantasy team, so you're hyping him up as a first round pick in a fantasy draft.
We will have a ChadBurn Show fantasy football segment absolutely when it gets closer, since obviously I am by far the most wise drafter, getting Chris Godwin in the 12th round. So I'm just saying, we all know the gurus over here, wide receivers.
I remember you guys all laughing at me for my Lamar Jackson in like the 10th round. So.
No, that was incredible. I agree.
That.
Yeah, we'll get there. Wow, Carlo has no anecdotes for amazing fantasy football references.
Well, I mean, I had the best team in our league last year, so I let my team do the talking. I don't have anything to hype up.
Slipping his way all the way to the finals to come crashing back down to earth.
Wait, Chad, you were the one. Huh? Oh no, it was Jake.
No, Jake won it. I lost the first round, but that's fine. No, we will have, to our listeners, don't worry, we will have a fantasy football preview coming up later on to cover all that segment for sure. But I think, guys, I mean, we kind of covered, obviously, the NBA, the NHL. We got to talk NFL. We got to talk tight ends. And then we even got our wonderful debate with quarterbacks versus all the other positions. I think that's about wraps it up for this episode. I mean, it's been pretty impressive far. I want to thank you guys for coming on and making it a great one. I'll leave it to you guys. Any final thoughts before we sign off on episode 46 of the ChadBurn Show?
I will say that as we speak, the Phillies are well on their way to sweeping the Mets and getting their season back on track. So
there we go.
We will talk baseball next time, but I haven't lost all hope on the Phillies yet. But appreciate you having me on, and hopefully next time we talk, we have baseball and football live to talk about.
I am absolutely not. Dillon.
I just would like you to just say it for the record that Aaron Judge is your favorite player and that you will no longer slander his name.
I've never slandered, and I love Aaron Judge. I just think that, and this will be the next time we talk baseball, that at this point in time, the Phillies have an impressive lineup that is being undervalued compared to the powerhouse team that is the Yankees. That is my family team and that I support. So absolutely all right for Judge.
Small town Phillies.
He's also on the injured. He's also on the injured list now, so he'll be out for a while.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, lower leg injury. I think they're based on the calf. He's out for at least 10 days. 10 days. So he is. Yeah. So before we start making that wild argument here,
I didn't do any baseball research this morning because
I know exactly.
your agenda was solely basketball, hockey, and football.
I know. So we'll cover that next time. No, for sure. All right, guys. I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was absolutely a pleasure. Thank you again for making episode 46 great. To everyone listening, thank you for joining. We will be on obviously next week on Monday at 7 p.m. to cover another episode for the ChadBurn Show. As always, if you ever need to catch us, you can listen to us on any of the podcast platforms you're listening to or on YouTube to check out the video. But thank you again for supporting the show. We'll be back. And until next time, have a great evening and good night. Thank you for listening to the ChadBurn Show. Remember to check out all new episodes every Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all major platforms where you listen to your podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me and you want to send in your questions or requests for topics to discuss in the show, you can email chadburn.show@gmail.com. All episodes have video recorded, which is then posted to our YouTube channel, The ChadBurn Show. Be sure to subscribe to us where you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all our new content. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ChadBurn Show and on Facebook, The ChadBurn Show, to see clips from previously recorded episodes and information on all upcoming shows.